Give me the camera. You give it to me. Give it off. Give it off. Give
down,
it.
down.
Give it.
One of the little nuggets of wisdom that's gone around Hollywood for decades has been don't work with water. Movies set on boats or in lakes or on the ocean have a tendency to be complicated shoots, leading to unpredictable problems and budgetary overruns, which you'll recall plagued both Waterworld and Titanic before those films were released. Water is a tremendous pain in the ass to film with. I'm sure Renny Harlin learned when he was making the waterlogged Deep Blue Sea. Luckily, the film is also educational for its audience, as we learned yet again that humanity should never, ever, ever try to cure Alzheimer's disease.
200,000 men and women develop Alzheimer's each year.
Stop me if you've heard this before. A well-meaning scientist watches their father suffer through Alzheimer's and vows to find a cure for the disease. Animal testing proceeds, but the scientist is desperate for answers and bypasses ordinary safety protocols, leading to side effects like increased intelligence in their subjects. Those subjects become upset with captivity and eventually hatch plots to escape, leading to mayhem and carnage all around. I am, of course, describing the plot of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, but I'm also describing Deep Blue Sea, the 1999 R-rated shark horror film from the mind of the man who made Die Hard 2 and Cutthroat Island. It is precisely as dumb as you might have remembered, and as a mixture of pleasure and pain, it's precisely the kind of film that belongs in Half Good. Before we get to the breakdown though, let's give a bit of backstory. You'll recall that Deep Blue Sea tells the story of Dr. Susan McAllister, a mentally challenged scientist who's intentionally making sharks smarter as part of her quest to capture more of their brain juice, which she believes will help her cure neurological diseases. After an accident involving an escaped shark and an unfortunately uneaten number of girls in bikinis, she invites her investor out to her mysterious lair in the middle of the ocean to prove to him that her research is worthwhile.
Welcome to my parlor, Mr. Franklin.
She's joined by a host of assistants and a suspiciously gruff Thomas Jane, who wrangles the sharks and continuously airs his concerns about their super smartness.
You're reading too much into it.
After a storm comes along and conveniently cuts the base off from everyone in the outside world, the sharks spring into action and attempt to sink the entire floating island so that they can make their escape. Mayhem, predictably, ensues. I give Deep Blue Sea credit for being a big budget film that's not afraid to go for the R-rated gore. I don't give it credit for a lot of other things though, so let's start weighing our options. The Good! Samuel L. Jackson and Stellan Skarsgård. If the last decade has taught us anything, it's that Samuel L. Jackson will be in any movie ever.
Wow.
The insinuation is that he's just a secretary, but no, he's the billionaire industrialist who's been bankrolling Dr. McAllister's mad little quest. As usual, Jackson is game for whatever the role offers him, whether it's awkward racial bantering with LL Cool J.
Like black men don't have enough ways to get killed without climbing up some stupid ass mountain in the middle of God's nowhere.
Acting as the sole font of reason when shit goes bad.
And unless someone's got a better idea, we're going to have to swim out of here.
Or attempting to squeeze into an ill-fitting jumpsuit.
Now you've seen how bad things can get.
He and Stellan Skarsgård seem to be in on the joke of the film, with Skarsgård willing to creep the shit out of everyone at dinner by saying stuff like this.
Sharks were the oldest creatures on the planet, from a time when the world was just flesh and teeth.
Midway through the film, Jackson attempts to rally the survivors with a short tale of his adventures climbing mountains. Apparently the sharks are as bored with it as the audience is, which leads to an absolutely classic movie moment.
First, we're gonna seal off this.
I almost literally fell out of my chair laughing when that moment happened. So I give all the credit in the world to the screenwriters for throwing in a moment as unexpected and wonderful as you could possibly want in a movie like this.
You just ate him.
And I especially love Michael Rappaport for stating the obvious. The Bad, LL Cool J.
Any of your nonsense this morning and we're gonna have tiny little drumsticks on the menu tonight.
The film career of LL Cool J is filled with a kind of carnival of lowlights, from his ab flexing in SWAT to his embarrassing behind-the-scenes fight with Jamie Foxx on the set of Any Given Sunday. The character of Preacher in Deep Blue Sea might be one of his worst roles though, and that's really saying something. In some cosmic double whammy of stereotyping, Cool J plays the only full-time black guy on the facility, so of course he's the cook. He's also wickedly religious, hence the name, and is given to praying out loud every time the camera's on him. He also has a foul-mouthed bird because that's funny. Right?
You got a big fat butt.
Preacher is done no favors by the script, which generally has him act as absolutely horrible comic relief, as when he picks up a camera and decides to record his last will and testament.
What mark do I have to leave behind? We will begin with the perfect omelet, which is made with 2 eggs, not 3.
Interspersed throughout these moments are the occasions when he's supposed to act as a soulful presence in the film, with wise words about how life is short, etc., etc. Luckily, although his bird perishes in a horrible shark-related accident, Preacher is, of course, one of the 2 characters who actually survives the film through the end. And somehow, that is when the hurting actually just begins, because Cool J insists on not only being the film's music supervisor, but also treating us all to a horrible shark-related rap while the credits play.
Looking for human flesh to rip my teeth through. Other fish in the sea, but barracudas ain't equal to a half-human predator created by a needle. Jet black eyes.
The good, unpredictable gore. We talked a bit about Samuel L. Jackson's death above, but he's obviously not the only facility resident who dies horribly. Skarsgård gets his arm bitten off in the film's first bloody accident, and then has the undignified fate to be used as a battering ram by the sharks as they attempt to flood the facility. At around the same time, the medevac team that's coming to pick up him and his armless body runs into a little trouble of their own. From there, the film ramps up into what must be considered high gear, at least for it. It takes a surprisingly long time for someone else to die, but when they do, the dominoes start to fall in fashionably predictable order. First, the other lady dies. Harport dies in convincingly leg-twitchy fashion. And then a number of fake-out deaths start occurring before poor Saffron Burrows decides to sacrifice herself for science. The bad or the good, Saffron Burrows kills a shark. So there are 3 mega sharks that torment the facility. One is killed by LL Cool J and his magical lighter that stays lit despite being hurled like a baseball. The Biggie is killed by gunpowder charges in a fountain of viscera. The middle shark, though, is taken out by Saffron Burrows in her little apartment area in the facility, and her technique for doing so is either awesome or hysterically bad, depending on her vantage point. I am so confused by this, because on the one hand, I love sexy ladies with British accents taking their clothes off, but on the other hand, I recognize that this is as pandery a moment of gratuitous disrobing as you're likely to get without any actual nudity. Harlan somehow manages to create a scene that is both schlocky, but not schlocky enough for the movie it's in. So I'm going to succumb to my confusion and call this a push. Deep Blue Sea is a fantastically dumb movie in the way that a lot of water-based horror films tend to be. Nothing is particularly plausible about it, but if you're watching expecting realistic science and compelling conversations, you probably didn't read any reviews of the film before getting it from Netflix. What's more, though, it seems to be somehow unaware of its own dumbness. It doesn't exactly take itself seriously, but it certainly seems to want to, in a way that movies like Piranha float right on past on the river to campiness. If you want to see people horrifically mangled by killer sharks, you could certainly do a lot worse than Deep Blue Sea, but in a field that's dominated by Steven Spielberg's masterpiece, Jaws, you could also certainly do a lot better.
Oh, take me back to the ghetto.
Survive and attack. There's only one way. Battle to the death. That's how sharks play. Weapons left behind. We dueling with the mind. You blind, crippled, and crazy. You're real easy to